I'll check if there's any questions right now, and then I do have another piece. Um, so does anybody have, I have another piece to show you a couple of the actual methods of how you take backgrounds out and stuff, and then we'll also address the fur thing. Does anybody have a question? Just jump right in. Yes, no? Karen.
Wow, wow, there was a lot to take in, and I had a piece of paper and it's got it down notes. And sure enough, and that was really assuring for me, 3, 4 minutes later, you went exactly to what my idea was, what could further improve a picture. So I know I'm obviously working in the right direction.
Good.
One thing I noticed on your balance piece with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you have the scale, and the scale is sitting right behind her head in the middle. For me, it looks like the scale is growing out of her head. Was that your intention, or would a little gap in between just having the scale over her
It actually
change it?
was that it's her consciousness that does the scale, but I'm planning to do the scale only in quilting, not in a separate piece of fabric.
Okay. So it's not that
That's a good question.
strongly.
And I might do enough quilting in the background that it kind of hides in there. So,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
you're right. That's a good point, and I did play around with that, and I'm still haven't completely figured that piece out. So,
Okay. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say that with Leslie's piece, with the problem with the water reflections and with the fish, I've worked with water before, and I put the fish and put tulle over it. And you can even
yeah,
fold the tulle, so it gives you a little bit of movement in the water. And if you look for tulle around Halloween time, you very often find tulle that is shimmering already.
that's
So that
right.
might be something cut off in little pieces. Or with the light colored reflections, you can go for some shimmering fabric and have a fusible underneath and fuse it on top. Or even use cellophane for the reflection,
Yep. Yep.
or go with some fabric that you put on there. There's often some, we can't really work on small pieces, dots or so, but you can find some, not fabric, sorry, fabric paint that you can put on there.
Right.
Like the Tsukinenko has a couple of almost like opaque, that looks like the inside of a shell or so, and that might be something you could
That's
use
a
then in
good point.
combination with other things.
I have very successfully used Sulky Sliver, which is the wider metallic thread. You have to use a bigger needle with that, but to go back and forth
Mm-hmm.
to get that shimmer on water, and it's really effective. But those are great points. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
thank you both. That was very informative.
okay.
I
Well,
really, I really like the idea of putting the monk in there.
oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. And that's the thing that's important is you don't have to think in terms of if you can direct the eye where you want it. And I have done this before, and other artists in paintings, in quilts, whatever. If there's an area that you feel like you haven't done very well, and I've had those, you make a big focal point somewhere else, and people just like gloss over it. So I do have the other slideshow. So let me go ahead and start that real quick and show you how we can. Oh, let me wait a minute.
I was going to say something
Yes,
about that
go right ahead.
last one with the gondola.
Yes, go right ahead.
I like what you did, but since she's doing it in fabric, I thought there's a lot of colorful banners and flags usually around the gondola. You see a lot of those. And I
I've
thought
never
it
been
might
to
be really,
Venice,
really
but that's
cool to put
yeah,
like a draped part of a draped fabric flag in that, hanging in the upper left.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I thought that would really put pizzazz into that picture that
Uh-huh.
is just a little boring because it's that one point perspective. So that was
That's a great
just
idea.
something that came to me.
Yeah, and that's a good way to add extra color. And I didn't,
Yeah.
sadly, I have never been to Venice. I hope to remedy that situation. but but that's a great point. Okay, so let me share a little bit on, oh, so the first thing I want to show you is if you go to, this is just blatant self-promotion on the on the first page. Let's see, where is my, oh, I think I have to show it like this anyway to be able to manipulate stuff. Okay, so these are my 3 pieces that will be in the Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival. I have Moonlight in the Garden of the Goddess on the left, which was juried into the vest portion of MAQF. I have the Enchanted Seahorse Long Vest, which is part of the Tidewater Quilt Guild, and then the one on the bottom, which is part of ours. So I just wanted to invite you to see this. So, okay, so how did I remove the background on this? So I go here, click on it in Pages. When you see these little squares, that means it's active. And I'm going to go up to the top, which is remove background, and that's it, remove the background. This one's pretty easy. Some of them are tricky to remove the background. Then how did I add the top of the head? So I want to, let me see if I can move this. All right. I want to add a circle here. And I'm going to get that about the size of the top of her head. There we go. And then I'm going to go to Color Fill here on the right. And I'm going to click on the colors. And in the colors, I'm going to pick the eyedropper. And with the eyedropper, I'm going to pick the color I want. So that, and then I'm going to put this here. And in Arrange, I'm going to send it to the back. So there you go. So basically I added that to the top of her head. So on this one, let's see. Before I start cutting things up, I generally make another one. So what we'll do is Image, edit the mask. So I'm going to edit this mask down to this portion here. Make that a little bigger. And then I'm going to edit the hat here. So I'm taking that out. And then, now both of these have backgrounds on them, which is not good. So I'm gonna, what'll happen if, there we go, good. Okay, so we remove the background on that. Let's see if we can remove the background on this. Nope, we can't. So Command Z, it thought the thing was part of the background. So what I'm gonna do is get rid of, we have gray lines around both of this. That's a line here. I'm gonna go to no border, get rid of those. And I'm gonna go to this skull and I'm going to go to remove background, and I don't like that, so I'm going to reset it, and now I'm going to just remove part of the black, I hope. There we go. And then maybe edit the mask a little bit so that's a little smaller. Then I'm going to arrange that and bring it to the front. So kind of have that going on, and then I'm going to edit the mask, and I will go to Arrange here. I have a lot of stuff on my screen. Sorry, I'm moving stuff around. I'm not sure how that looks for you. So when I go to Arrange, I'm going to angle the place that's cropping it and get it a little smaller here so that I have just the head there showing. And that's going to, you can see it's rough, but it, and I can even crop this a little bit. Let's see, edit the mask, bring this in. And as you go, you can print these out and cut them apart and, physically cut and paste them too. I do that a lot. So, okay, this one also, remove the background. There you go. Done. Okay. And on this one, let's see. To ungroup it. You have to ungroup it to do anything. So the background here was that image that I got. So I'm going to go to Style and go to opacity. And that's what makes it less opaque. And then I can put that into the background. Same thing with this on the right-hand side, lower the opacity there. Then I'm going to drag that in, just kind of put it in there. So that way where things are overlapping each other, I can actually see them. So this is Eric's photos. So on this one, we go to adjust the image. Now I have a adjust image drop down on my screen, but you might not be able to see it because it's not part of the part of this, but you go to adjust image, and I'm going to leave the one on the left hand side. The one on the right hand side, I'm going to adjust, and I'm taking the exposure and moving it all the way up so you can see that the colors are bleached out. Now that's moved all the way up for me. And that's as far as I can go with that exposure, and I don't think it's enough. So what I would do is take a screenshot of this, which starts it there, and then drag it in again and raise the exposure more. And that'll help me see into this dark area. Okay, so this is how I did Karen's, remove the background. So you can see, there you go. So that I just made one click and that isolated the rocks. You can see it also got rid of that cute little rock in the center, but I was okay with that because that wasn't as important to me. 3, as you know, it's better to have 3, 5, you know, an odd number. And when I isolated these, I knew I was going to get rid of the stuff on the right-hand side, but the 3 rock towers on the left were the most interesting ones. So that's how I did that. And, okay. And so then this is adjust the background. So this is on Karen's. So the background was looking, you know, too important compared to the front part. So I go to image and, I'm sorry, I go to style and I'm going to lower the opacity. So lowering the opacity makes the lighter values a little darker, the darker values a little lighter. It moves this into the background and it allows your piece in the foreground to look like it's part of the foreground. Now, you know, you can see we have this line cut here. You know, there's a lot of irregularities, but the idea here is to get the overall idea of what you want to do with your artwork. And here we have on this one, I will show what happened when I, okay, so this one doesn't know. When I clicked on remove the background, it doesn't know what the background is. So it gives me an option that says click or drag. So I'm going to click on the blue sky and then I'm going to click on the clouds. And these clouds here. And then done. And then that's how you get rid of the background. And I don't worry about those little pieces there. So, and then, let's see if we can copy this page. So then I made a smaller one of this. And I'm going to copy and paste. And over here, I made a bigger one. So I'm going to go to image and edit the mask. And I'm going to crop this into just that. And then I'm going to make that big because Carol wants big. Okay, I'll move this, arrange, move to the front. Oh, so we make the tree bigger too. So this is basically how I made the proportion of the tree bigger. And I think I either put some sky back in there or maybe I left some of that sky. Either way, but you can see how by separating this out into 2 things, the separate tree and the separate mountains, I could rearrange their proportion. And you can bring that up there. So that's how you do that. And then this one was on Leslie's, how I isolated the grass to drop that grass into the background. I just got this piece and then I cropped it. And because I wanted a longer piece than what this was, I went to Arrange and I unclicked constrained proportions. And that way you can extend it like that, see? Or make it that if it's clicked on constrained proportions, if you do that, it makes the whole thing bigger or smaller. So that constrained proportions is a good thing for that. And then after I did that, I decided that I wanted a little bit less chroma in there. Chroma is saturation. So I went to the saturation tab. And so you can go all the way down to gray with that. I don't know, you probably can't see my drop down, but that's under adjust image. And if you are not using Mac Pages, if you're using another graphic design program, there should be adjust image, all the things I've mentioned. Okay, so here's the fur one. Let me add another page so we can see it. Okay, so the reason this picture would be very hard to do is because there is not identifiable light and shadow on it. And having identifiable light and shadow is what makes it easy to create three-dimensional form. And this is where most people have their problem. They're like, oh, it's a photograph, looks great in the photograph, but it's really hard to make it look real. So if you look at the 3 photos that I found quickly online, especially the one here of the white, I'm not very good at breeds. I think that's a pit bull. But the white one shows it the best. You can see that there's light and shadow on that head. You can see distinct light and shadow on the nose. You can see distinct light and shadow on the paws if you're going to use those, and inside the mouth. So that's what you're looking for. Generally, the best light and shadow configuration is what's called portrait lighting. It's famous for traditional painting, and portrait lighting is between, I would say, more than half light, but less, a little up to 3/4. So the shadow portion would be less than half and a little more than 1/4. So you can see that in the dog on the right. You can look, you can see that there's a little more than half light. You can look at the paw, the legs there, cylinders, light on one side, shadow on the other. And then the dog at the bottom, let me see if I can make that face a little bit bigger. You can see that there's distinct shadow because you can see the shadow cast on the ground, and that's something that'll give you a tip off. But if we make this bigger, you can see that there's distinct shadow on the right-hand side of this face. Now, this, because the camera sees light differently than us, this little light area on the right-hand side of the face is actually wrong. It's picking up too much light as part of the shadow. And if you copied that, it would destroy your feeling of shadow. So you don't want to do that. You want to know what the pitfalls of photography is and use photography as your friend, not as your enemy. But as long as you can keep a distinct light and shadow, we can see there's distinct shadow under this ear. Squinting your eyes help. You can definitely see it on the paw. So you want to start out with a picture that has distinct light and shadow on it, and then follow that, and that will give you, that will make it much easier for you to show form. So that is the completion of this, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question for Carol and maybe you, because you worked with hers. She had a yellow lab and a black lab, and the black lab was in the original photo. And I was curious. I know there's a reason she replaced the black lab with a tan lab, and I was just curious about that.
The picture that I took at Han Garden had my daughter's black golden doodle in it.
Okay.
And I wanted my very elderly golden Chesapeake Bay Retriever in it instead, because he was literally on his last legs and I wanted to memorialize him.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
got
that
him
makes
to
sense.
lay in a way where I could then crop him out and paste him in the picture.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it was something that was meaningful to me.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's a good way that you can cut things up and, you know, make your pictures
Yeah.
do what you want them to do. Yeah.
So if you have a picture that doesn't have shadows, you can manufacture your own shadows, right?
I would say with 15 or 20 years of background art, yes.
Or studying, looking at other pictures besides having an understanding of
Yeah,
how light is.
I tell my students don't even attempt that until they've drawn, you know, 50 drawings where they've copied light and shadow on basic forms.
Well, like for me, I probably don't have 15 or 20 years left, but
that was a little bit, you know, you don't have to, yeah, but you definitely want to know how light and shadow appears on basic forms. When I
well,
teach,
sometimes you might not have a choice because as with a pet, if you've lost your pet and you have limited pictures of your pet, yeah.
then you would want to do a lot of preliminary things where you have tried to manufacture the light and shadow before you start on your final thing. And you can, when I teach my traditional drawing and painting, you know, my training was traditional classical art. My teacher studied with Norman Rockwell, and we start out with learning basic forms. So when I teach my students, we learn light and shadow on cylinders, spheres, cubes. Linda Carroll had to do that. She didn't think it was good at the beginning, but she'll tell you, right, that it's valuable. And so once you understand how light works on a cylinder, you can apply that to a tree trunk or a dog's leg. And once you understand how it is applied to a sphere or an egg shape, you can apply that to a head.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can try that. The very best thing is to get the best picture you can. And you're right. If you do have a deceased pet and all you can do is get the pictures, you can look on the internet. Like if you had a specific dog breed and you could look on the internet and find something similar to your dog with good light and shadow, and then adjust the coloring in your own pet that would, you know, show that it's yours, but you could use another picture as an indication of how to get good light and shadow. But if you go to the quilt show, when you go, you will find that all the quilts that seem the most commanding, that are visual, you know, visual images, I'm not talking about geometric quilts, are the ones where light and shadow is easily discernible.
There was a question on chat. Patrice asked, how do you superimpose the rules of third grid over your photo? Is that in Pages?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question was, how do you superimpose the rule of third grid over your photo? Is that in Pages?
Ah, that's a great question. I made that. So anybody who has Pages, if you, I made a rectangle that you can move around. You can elongate it. You can elongate it in every direction. And I plop it in Pages. Anybody here who has Pages, you can email me and I will send you my Pages document that has that in it. And you can copy and paste it into anything else. If you don't have Pages, you would need to construct that yourself. And one of the ways, the way that I did it before I figured out I could make a thing that I could move around was for each thing, each image that I was trying to figure out, I just had sticks. I put lines on there and I just moved them around. And so I had a frame and 4 lines, 2 going this way and 2 going the other way. And that was one way of doing that. So you can also print out on a piece of paper and fold it into thirds both ways and see how that works.
Is
Yeah.
Pages an app that you download?
Yes,
It
you
is.
can.
Now
I
you
was
how
going
you-
to say,
That's how you
I
get
had-
it.
I had a MacBook Pro and
Mhm.
it It was a built-in software.
Yeah.
And then I got a newer MacBook Air, and I downloaded the app.
Oh,
and,
okay.
it worked.
Because
So
I
that's
have a
how I got it.
MacBook too, and I was wondering where to find it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
then your documents reside in the cloud. That's what I discovered on my Air.
Which documents?
The document you create in Pages,
yeah.
it's
Oh,
not
it
drag
goes
like,
to
'em
the
out.
cloud?
yeah. So
Look
you
in your
just have
app
to go
on
there
a
to
Mac.
find it.
If you look in your Mac and find iWork, Pages is part, there's 3 things in iWork. Numbers, Pages, and
Well, I'm such a novice, I don't even know where that is.
down your, on your dock,
Yeah,
there should be a place that actually, you can go to Spotlight. On the upper right-hand side, there's a magnifying glass. Click on that and just put Pages in, and it'll search it. It should come up with it. And then when you find it, you can drag it into your dock, and then you can open it. Pages has 2 aspects to it. It has the what do you call it? Like Word, the one where you just use for text, and then it has the graphic design. And
Okay.
I would recommend, now you can, anybody here can take private lessons with me anytime on Zoom. I do that. But you can go on YouTube and watch a couple videos on how to use Pages, and that'll show you. There's really good ones. Just look for the newest ones, because every time it updates, it changes a little bit. So when I go to YouTube to look at tutorial videos, I try to pick the one that's the newest one.
okay. Thank you.
That
Well-
probably also answers Leslie's question, because she said, is there a good reference book? But it seems it's better to get the tutorials online then.
Yeah, let's see. I didn't look. Oh, hi, Julie. There's Julie. For some reason, I lost, I guess I made my screen too small. I lost the piece that tells me where the chat is. There it is. Okay. So
I think we got everything to
did
you.
we? Okay.
Yes, I kept an eye on the questions.
Thank you so much. Okay. So, okay.
Thank you,
So-
Meryl. This was really informative. I appreciate the time you've taken to do this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is fun stuff, and I hope it helps everybody answer their questions and problems in future future art pieces for Tava.
And thanks to others for suggestions too.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Thank you, Marilyn. Appreciate you doing
Yes.
doing
Thank
what you
you.
did.